So with that, we'll go ahead and take questions. Just speak up for the camera if you've got a question.
If a employee, say they're 60, wants to retire, cash out, can they roll the money from the ESOP into a IRA or something to get it deferred?
Yes. So because it is a qualified defined contribution plan, any distributions from the plan can be rolled over to a 401k or to an IRA, just like a profit sharing plan or 401k.
So Marcus, when you talked about the non-discriminatory nature of the transaction, does that mean you have a set of employees, say it's 40 or 50 full-time employees, they all get the same number of shares?
No. So a safe harbor allocation formula for allocating these shares, and the most typical one that's used, is pro rata to compensation. So if you have 5% of the compensation, you get 5% of the allocated stock that year. Typical profit sharing formula, very simple. There are no age-weighted or cross-tested ESOPs. That's not permitted. Okay, so it's very, very simple when it comes to non-discrimination in the ESOP world. Okay.
Why does the DOL not like them?
Why does the DOL not like ESOPs? There is a lot of debate about that question. We're not quite sure. Okay, it is true, to play devil's advocate for a moment. It is true that a lot of ESOP transactions were done in a shoddy way, right? There were not the right advisors involved. Maybe the value of the stock was artificially inflated, and the DOL felt that maybe the ESOP paid too much for that stock. So that's one very common, and probably the biggest reason why the Department of Labor is skeptical of ESOPs. Just recently, 3 months ago now, with one of our own clients here in Riverside, there was a settlement between the Department of Labor and their professional trustee, where this is a groundbreaking case where the Department of Labor, as terms of the settlement, published guidelines for executing an ESOP transaction. They expect all trustees to follow in order to have an adequate and thorough due diligence process, to question the assumptions that go into the appraisal, to make sure that appraiser remains independent and free of conflict throughout the process. And by and large, those terms of that settlement I endorse, I agree with. It's the way we've been doing transactions for years. And it levels the playing field, if you will, because all advisors in this industry are going to have to pay attention to those terms and improve the quality of the transactions they do. The last thing that we want for one of our clients is for one of their transactions to be scrutinized 2 or 3 years after and have it all blow up because of bad optics, bad process, lack of due diligence, lack of independence. There's almost never any malicious intent. That doesn't matter. Sean, you can probably imagine that really doesn't matter when you have a regulator that's looking for problems. Okay? So you've got to do these deals well and cleanly in a well-documented and transparent way.
So how's the business owner position the employees so they have the skill set to take over the company and run it?
That is a key issue, one that is of interest to some of the professionals in this room. Just because you have a successful ownership transition plan does not mean that you have a management succession plan. Okay? Those are not the same thing. And so a conversation we have with every ESOP candidate: who is your successor management? How far along are they? Are they ready to take over? What is your involvement day to day? What is your plan to reduce your involvement to zero? What's great about the ESOP is that you have flexibility in doing that. Even after the ESOP transaction, that seller can transition out gradually out of management over a multi-year period if he wishes. And that's very often the case, where the owner takes advantage of that 5-year period where they're deleveraging the company to groom his successor and to make sure that the company is self-sustaining post-transaction. A lot of times you need to use a good management consultant to help get that next generation management team ready and accountable and paying attention to what needs to happen. A lot of times the owner will eventually retire to the board of directors and become a true director, if you will, looking at the strategy of the company long run, and keeping the successor management team accountable to their goals and objectives and long range plan. And that's a very gratifying role for a lot of business owners who don't want the day-to-day involvement necessarily anymore, but they love their company, they love their employees, and they want to see it succeed over the long run. And we have many clients where the owner has sat on the board of directors for 15 years post-transaction.
Is there a cap on the size of transactions for an ESOP?
I would say no. There's a very well-known international engineering firm, for example, headquartered in Pasadena. It has 15,000 employees. Last year, I believe they had $400 million of pre-tax earnings. And they're a 100% ESOP-owned S Corp. And they pay no tax.
Can ESOP-owned companies still do acquisitions?
Absolutely. In fact, they have a competitive advantage in acquisitions because, again, they have that tax shelter. Any other acquirer has to pay for their acquisitions with after-tax dollars. Well, if you're a tax-exempt acquirer, you don't have that same restriction. So, yes, once an ESOP company is deleveraged, many of them are very acquisitive. And some of them even resemble hedge funds or private equity groups. They've gotten so active in the acquisitions market that their original core business is just one little piece many years down the road.